Hello, hello. Welcome back to Business First Creatives. I'm bringing you another case study episode, and it's ironic that it's taken me so long to bring David on the podcast because he is what really pushed me to create the sales page to actually sell Systems in Session. So I want to tell you guys a story because I may have lied a little bit. When I did Kelly Bullock's case study, I told you that she was the impetus for getting it off the ground. And that's half true. Kelly was waiting for me to create a checkout page, a sales page, so that she could, join and pay me the money. But it was actually a conversation with David where I literally went home and sat in my office for I think it was 2 or 3 hours. And then I was like, hey, David, here it is, so that he could pay me. But David, welcome to Business First Creatives.
Thanks, Coley. Thanks for having me here. And it's nice to finally hear that backstory because I didn't know that was true.
Well, it is true. So let me tell you guys, I met David at a family narrative event. We are both huge family narrative fans. And this event was in Washington in 2024. And then roll around almost exactly a year later. I mean, I think it was 6 weeks shy of a year. But David pops up in my inbox and he's like, okay, Coley, I'm really ready to give my HoneyBook an overhaul. And he's like, and I've looked at all the things that you offer. And he was like, this is what I'm thinking. And David was literally trying to put together, I don't want to call it a mentorship, but he was trying to put together what he thought was going to be the most effective way for him to do his systems. And you guys all know by this point, Systems in Session had been something that was marinating in my brain. And so I pulled over. I mean, literally, I had this consultation with David on the side of the road because I couldn't get to the building that I was trying to get to fast enough. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, okay, so here's the thing, David. You want these 3 things. But I am about to launch an offer that gives you these 3 things plus these things for this cost. How does that sound? And he was like, sign me up. Just send me the checkout page. And I was like, okay, that's 2 people. Now I really have to do this thing. I really have to go home and make the sales page. Because in case you guys don't know, I am someone who doesn't sell something to someone unless there's a sales page, because I need you to know exactly what I'm promising to give you before you pay me the money. So I went home. A couple hours later, I had a sales page and the rest is history. So David, thank you so much for kind of being the reason that I had to stop just talking about it and I had to actually do it.
That's so awesome. I'd say you're welcome, except I didn't really know I was doing a favor. And full transparency, you were very clear that this was a new offering, but you didn't tell me you had to write the sales page. You're like, I'll email you in a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. I needed that couple hours to make the sales page. And I mean, don't get it twisted. I always take an existing sales page and duplicate it and then just customize the shit out of it. I mean, that's what I do forever.
No, it was a long sales page.
It was a long sales page, y'all. So just so that you know, I sit down, I have all these ideas, I'm putting them all down. And then I'm like, okay, but with any beta offer, I mean, I would say, David, I don't even know that you would recognize what I do for people now versus what you had almost a year ago. There's so much more structure and I don't want to say limitations, but and I have a list of actual results that we check off now. I just told you, oh, we're going to get your HoneyBook straight. That was basically what I promised you. You're going to get your HoneyBook where it needs to be, and you're going to be off to the races. But now, I mean, in the almost year since I worked with you, David, I've got this really dialed down. But if I can ask you, and understanding that it's been almost a year, why did you contact me that particular week in order to start the process of giving your HoneyBook a refresh? What was the impetus that you were like, okay, now, right now is when I want to get my HoneyBook right, if you will?
Well, I think the really subjective answer was time of year. I'm a family photographer. It was February, January.
It was March. It was early March.
Okay, yeah, it was that time of year. So I think it had been just enough time where I'd had a couple months in my slow season, and I started the process of overhauling my workflows, which I had just hit a point where that needed to happen. And we can dive deeper into why, but it was time to overhaul my workflows, and I started DIYing it. I started using your free resources. I started putting it all together. And I think what for me, I realized, and I think this is probably pretty typical of folks who thrive in systems in session, is I, one, need to have a hand in the process. Like, I can't even conceptualize it unless I start building it a little bit. I'm also like, I have some skills on the technical side in the back end. I know some HoneyBook stuff, and I don't, so I'm not afraid to get in there and get my hands dirty. But at the same time, what I felt like I was really missing, aside from just your course itself, was someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to coach me essentially, and someone to double check my work and tell me where I was going wrong and give me that confidence. It's basically the confidence to do it myself.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't tell him to say that, y'all, but you guys can now see. I want you guys to think back to every other case study that I've had, and a majority of them were people that I helped after the beta clients, like David, like Kelly. But those people are now saying, David's saying the same thing. I wanted the confidence to be able to do it myself, but I also needed Coley to like hold my hand and walk me through it. And it's funny, David, because again, when I offered this to you, confidence wasn't anywhere on my list of things to think about. Mm-hmm. I was really focused back then on, you guys need automations, because we're talking about HoneyBook. You need automations that work for you, and I can help you get them. Like, that was literally what I was focused on. And what I have figured out in the time since I worked with you, by interviewing almost every single one of my clients as they come out of systems in session, is that, yeah, they got workflows that worked. I mean, that was what I promised you. You got that. But in the end, almost every single one of my clients has raised their prices. Almost every single one of my clients has taken what we did for that first main offer, and they are duplicating it and creating client experience and automations for the second offers all on their own. Because that's a big difference, David. You were one of my beta people. So you and I went through every single offer that you had. I don't do that anymore. Yeah. They get one offer. They get one offer.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So inside of systems in session, when we were together and we were actually like working on your automations, what was surprising about the process that you didn't expect when you first decided to join? Was there anything?
I don't know. I think it's just continually surprising that the prep work, the strategy, the values system behind an automation take way, way, way more time than building the automation. Building the automation is really quite easy, although HoneyBook 2.0 or whatever made it a little harder for us. But being able to clearly lay out what you want to happen is probably the thing that I and a lot of photographers are scared to take to that final step, or incapable of visualizing. And that ends up being a big part of the process, but that also is a big part of your skill set.
Oh, well, thank you, David. And that is all true. It's funny. You were one of my beta people, and it is just now that I have another male photographer inside of Systems in Session. And oddly enough, he just finished week 1. And I mean, he jumped feet first. We have already set up his new, because he didn't have Dubsado at all. So we've set up his contact form. He's written his entire client experience communication library, like from beginning to end. We have started on his scheduler, but like, he keeps sending me these Loom videos. Hi, Jordan, if you're listening. He keeps sending me these Loom videos where he's like, Coley, I had no idea that this was going to touch every single part of my process with my clients. He's like, I wanted it to be better, don't get me wrong. But he has already expressed to me multiple times that, like, I just didn't understand how much bigger my client experience could be, or how much goes into the planning before we can even get to the automations and the workflows. And I do feel a little sorry for you, David. And also, I feel like, yes, you got a good experience for me. I mean, I can say that, guys. I have enough, confidence in myself to say that. But also, poor David, we actually built everything for him, and then we tore it down and built it again, because HoneyBook 2.0 automations are just not where I would want them to be. So, David, at this point, we built pretty big automations for you. And then we realized that inside of all of the conditional logic that we added for you, that if people weren't doing things exactly as expected. They didn't have anywhere to go in the automation. So we took your really long automations and we broke them down into much smaller bits. I mean, even smaller, everyone, than the typical 5 phases that I talk about on this podcast ad nauseum. But how are those smaller automations working for you now?
Yeah, they're working well. It was a big philosophical change, and it was interesting because I didn't realize that HoneyBook 2.0 was as new as it was when I jumped in, because they start talking about it like a year in advance, and they release it to a couple beta clients, and all the while I thought it was just going live. But apparently I jumped in pretty near the beginning. And
so the funny thing is, you didn't actually jump in at the beginning. So you and I worked together in April. It was actually released to a lot of people in the previous year. So no, that's 4 or 5 months. And it still, had that many issues, that many things that we were waiting on. It's kind of funny because I had a bunch of clients that kept asking me about 2.0, and I'm like, no, it has these key things that I just cannot recommend that you swap. So before you and I started working together, they had fixed most of those. But then think of all the ways that we had to modify it after we had everything going.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've made the switch and it is working well. Those smaller chunks do work well, and you just have to kind of reinvent the way you think of a workflow. I will say I'm especially now making some major changes in my business. And so the workflows are going to change substantially. I've also got a virtual assistant who's great in HoneyBook, and she's going to be doing a fair amount of that, but it doesn't in any way invalidate systems in session. In fact, it's the opposite. Because I was in there building them myself and having someone to double check me and catch me when I was doing things wrong, I now have, the mental structure and the understanding of the tool to help my assistant Erin build these new workflows. So I think systems in session was great that way. Whereas if you had just done a build for me start to finish, I would be crafting this new series of sessions I'm offering this year called the Inspiration Series. And I would have to come to you and be like, Holy, what do I do? So this gives me a lot of control over the process, which is awesome.
I mean, and it's a little weird for me to say, everyone, that I love that I'm not going to see David again. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, he has the confidence and the knowledge because he built it himself, technically the first time. I mean, yes, I was there. Yes, I mean, but a lot of what I did with David was I told him when he was overthinking things, and we structured it in a way that made the most sense. And I will say, there were times when David really made me think of the HoneyBook automation as a whole. And while if you ask me for Dubsado advice, I think that the advice just spews out of my mouth, literally in 2 seconds. But I can recall a certain number of times where David would ask me a question and I would immediately respond to him in the support ticket. And I'm like, you know what? I need a day to think about this, because I didn't want to just give him my gut reaction, because I wanted to make sure that I was thinking the entire process through, because there's a lot of things in HoneyBook Automations 2.0 that just don't make the most logical sense to me. And so I'm constantly making sure that I'm seeing the whole process to the end result to make sure that everything that I'm suggesting to you will actually get you where you're trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at that point, and maybe it's still the case, some of these issues, which seemed pretty basic to me, I would take to HoneyBook support and to HoneyBook chats. And I know you did some of this too. And some of them we didn't have answers for yet. They hadn't really, there were mystery pieces within the whole process, which was super frustrating. And I'm really hopeful. I like the basic premise of HoneyBook 2.0. I really do, but I'm really hoping that within the next, 6 months, they listen to all of us and come out with, version 2.1 or whatever, where they keep that structure, but they address some really key topics. And the hardest part of all this is, as soon as they address those topics, my workflows can change dramatically in a good way, but it's going to be time to go in and do it again. So, yeah.
I mean, that one thing, David, and every time I talk to a HoneyBook person, because I currently have 2 HoneyBook users inside of Systems in Session. Everybody else is Dubsado. But for these 2, it's every time they ask me a question, I almost tell them And then I'm like, okay, wait, it's actually been a hot minute since I tested this. Let me go test it and make sure that it's still the same way that it was the last time that I ran it. And do you know that the one thing, David, that they still have not given us is the ability to edit an email while you are sending a smart file inside of an automation at the same time? You still can't do it.
Yeah. That is the low hanging fruit. That's so incredibly basic. I mean, to take that one step further, we really need to be able to go to an automation within a project and edit that automation.
Yes.
Because right now, yeah, if you're inside an automation in a project and something goes wrong, and I've even had unexplained like internal HoneyBook errors where it's just like this automation failed. Everything stops and you cannot move forward.
Nope, can't just restart it.
You can't even cancel it, really. It just hangs there in this weird interim. Yeah, and then you have to like manually go in and be like, where did it stop? What do I need to do next? And it's super frustrating. But yeah, obviously being able to edit the email draft is the tip of the iceberg.
It is. And I think what makes you and I the most frustrated is that was in 1.0. I do not understand
both those things.
Yes, you can't edit. You've never been able to edit a file in HoneyBook. And so I'm constantly telling HoneyBook clients versus Dubsado, yes, you may have heard me say, edit your proposal quickly before you send it. That's for Dubsado people. That's not you. But then the fact that I have to tell you, no, you can't edit that email at all. If you want to edit the email, you can't send it through an automation. You have to send it through the project dashboard. And I mean, I really hope that at one point, they give this to you guys, and then my advice in podcast episodes like this will be outdated. I look forward to the day that happens, but today is not that day.
No, if they never do that, I may someday be switching to Dubsado, but I made it work in the meantime with your help, and all is well.
Well, let's talk about Erin. Let's talk about that virtual assistant, because you are the second person to hire a virtual assistant immediately after systems in session. And so I want to ask you, do you think that it was the right move that you did systems in session and then you hired a virtual assistant, or do you wish that you had hired the virtual assistant first, and why?
Ooh, this is a good question. One I haven't thought a lot about. I think it worked well. I'm trying to nitpick my own brain here, because my knee-jerk reaction is, yeah, it worked well, but there were certainly challenges along the way, and I can see the benefit of having Erin involved in the building process. But I think for somebody who needs to feel not in control, but understand their own business and how things are created and not, I think this was the right path to take. I was able to hand Erin these workflows and a bunch of Loom videos, and we did some, we met in person and some conference calls as well, and kind of explain. And then she, being a HoneyBook aficionado herself, made some suggestions and some little tweaks to make it especially friendly for having an assistant on board. But I think that gave us a good starting point. I'm not sure it could have been much better. How did that work for your other
exact
client?
Same way. And I was hoping that you weren't going to disagree, but guys, this is the chance that I take.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have said that he wished that he had a virtual assistant first. I will say I have recently come across the first person who already had a virtual assistant and wanted to include them in the calls. And I thought back to you, I thought back to Kelly, and how I responded was, I really think that it should just be you and I on the calls. I think at the end of the day, this person may or may not stay with your business. I feel like it's really important that you be the instrument, the integral part of building and designing what these client experience systems are going to look like. I was like, but where I think you might absolutely want to bring your virtual assistant on is our final couple of calls where we are actually going through and testing and revising. I was like, but your first 4 scheduled calls, I don't think your virtual assistant should be involved. And so she agreed, which was fabulous, but I don't know.
I think it's good advice. If I or this person or whoever want someone else to build this, they should just hire you or a HoneyBook or Dubsado builder to build it for them. And that could include some, explanation and instruction along the way. But the whole point of Systems in Session is to empower you to build your own process and to be part of it.
Oh my God, that's my new tagline. Chelsea,
Yes.
Are you listening to that? I'm sorry.
No, that sounded good. Yeah.
It did sound good, David. And I'm leaving all of this in. That sounded really good.
That's great. Well, it's true. Like that's the whole point of Systems in Session. So if they want that for their assistant, then like they don't even need to really be on the calls, you know? So to me, it makes sense that's not the right fit for Systems in Session.
I mean, so looking back to your time in Systems in Session, like what has changed, or what have the systems given you inside of your business in the last 6 to 7 months? Like what was your fall? And I know how I'm going to ask this. How was your fall this year, David, versus the fall of the previous year?
My memory is short, so the previous year, can't remember that so well. But thinking back to this year, it was fairly, what I think having kind of the many automations that come with HoneyBook 2.0, the way I started to think about my automations in 2.0 was basically setting me up with more or less like an interactive checklist. Mm-hmm. And what it meant was like we kind of got away from having every single email, every single smart file attached and go out automatically because of some of these limitations. And we were okay with that. I was okay with that, especially because I knew I was bringing a virtual assistant on. So when I had a task or, an email draft to review or something along those lines, I had a person there to help me kind of connect those dots. But what it really helped me do this year, what I really left Systems in Session with, was this kind of, again, confidence that I could have a client start a client journey, and it was going to kind of keep me attuned to what is happening with them, where they are in that flow, and like what needs to happen next. And there are pieces of that are automated. There are pieces that are not, but I at least like know where they are. And I had that confidence this fall. I wasn't like 2 years ago. I do remember I had a giant spreadsheet of like client journey, and I was like checking off like where are they in this journey. And this year, like I could look in the pipeline and I could be like, they are generally here, and there are these tasks to do, and this is the status of their project. I was using tags for add-ons, and so I just had a lot more confidence. And to be totally clear, it was not perfect, and that's not on what we created at all. That's because I've changed things and I brought on an assistant, and HoneyBook 2.0, it's 2.0, and we're fixing up a lot of that this year. That's kind of what we're doing right now, actually. But I did have a kind of a baseline sense of confidence that I don't remember having the year before.
I love that you brought the spreadsheet to the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, my face is not going to appear on the video, but guys, I was like screaming internally. Okay, so here's what I'm really curious about, because I just bring these questions to you live. Thinking of your spreadsheet and thinking of the beginning of Systems in Session, when you and I really sat down and we thought about all the touch points that you wanted to have with your clients, did your customer journey, if you will, stay the same? Or was it modified by us taking the time in the beginning to do the strategy before we jumped into like actually implementing all of it in HoneyBook? I'm just curious, like, did we actually add things to your customer journey, or was it just implementing what you already had?
No, we definitely changed and added it. Like building out a customer journey to me was part of the process. I think, and maybe that was just an internal part of the process for me, but when I started Systems in Session, that's really what I wanted to overhaul. Like I had a basic HoneyBook 1.0 workflow that was working well enough for me. Like it was okay, but I didn't feel like I was creating the best possible experience for my clients. I didn't feel like I was getting the best possible feedback. I didn't feel like I was, offering upsells and add-ons at the right moments, and I wasn't delivering questionnaires at kind of the best time. And I don't know if you sell this as part of Systems in Session, but you've been around this stuff for a long time and you have a lot of great thoughts on all those kind of strategy pieces. So as we were building it out, that was like a big part of what I got, was the ability to pick your brain and like, should I send this questionnaire here or there, or break it into 2 or 3? And like, are some of those things still changing within my systems? Absolutely. They always will be. But we definitely altered, kind of recreated from scratch my client journey entirely. And that was probably the biggest change of all.
Thank you, David. I realize now I need to talk about, so I don't know if you've noticed, I have email like you mean it, and now I have systems in session. And I really go hard in email like you mean it, trying to explain to people why mapping your customer journey is so important. And I took all of the materials from email like you mean it, and I actually folded them into systems in session. So what I did by default, because that was part of my done for you process. You guys only had a kickoff call of an hour. But when I would do the done for you projects, particularly in Dovsato, that call was 4 hours long. I asked you everything under the sun that I possibly could to find out about you, your business, and then we mapped your customer journey and your workflows and all of those things. And that's after I gave people 4 to 5 hours of pre-work. I am doing systems in session just so differently now. And I've created a GPT. Her name is Clara. And all of my systems in session people go through that process before we even get on a kickoff call. So they come to the call now, David, with what I am calling their systems prep blueprint, completely ready for us to review and kind of add in things as we go, versus what you and I did was more, let's build it together on the call and then I'll present it to you after. So I felt like I was doing a really good job with like you and Kelly and Roxanne and some of you others that were earlier in the process. I felt like I was doing a good job of getting what I needed from you on the kickoff call. And then that first week and a half, we were kind of going back and forth. But by giving them the GPT now and kind of preparing them to make those decisions, I feel like they're even more of the process. It's more they're bringing what they've done to me and we're going through it together versus me pulling every little bit that I need out of you in order for it to really just be my brain that's like really formulating your customer journey. I have taken some of that responsibility off of myself and shifted it to my client, not because I'm lazy, but because I think it makes you such a better business owner going forward.
Yeah. No, so much of it is like a personal decision. You have to be part of that client mapping process. It's essential, but it makes, I assume, I'm guessing it also frees you up it gives you more bandwidth to kind of hone in on like these specific little pieces within their process where you see that they can make big improvements, whether it's in communication or sales or whatever, instead of having to, start like from scratch each time and put a lot of your energy into just building the things that are true for most photographers, or some version of which is true for most photographers. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because to me, like you talk about this all the time, like there is a template for the client journey, but it's when you get into the weeds that you really do need to spend a lot of time. Like the details is where we really do make a big difference between each other.
Yes. Absolutely. And one of the things that I really love about Systems in Session now, it's new for 2026, but I created an onboarding podcast for them, which, you know what, maybe I'll send it to you and you'll be like, oh, I really wish I had this. So I don't know, it was a few months ago, I realized every single person who joins Systems in Session listens to my podcast. I don't have that big of a listenership, but I do feel like it's super ironic that every single person who's ever joined has told me that they listen to the podcast. And so I was like, maybe they just really like this kind of audio. So now I have a 6-episode onboarding podcast. And these are not long, but they inform you and prepare you to be more effective inside of Systems in Session. And it kind of lays the groundwork for you to make some of these decisions before we even get on the kickoff call, so that again, when we start, I feel like my current clients are way further than you were. And I don't mean that as like shade to you, your business, any of that. I mean that they are now so much more prepared to know exactly what we're going to do in Systems in Session, and like how they can take what their business is currently doing and make it better. And so I am, again, really grateful to all of my beta people like you and Erin and Kelly that really helped me do this in a much slower build, so that by the time I came back around to 2026, everything that I'm doing is just so much more structured. And I mean, David, I currently have 15 people enrolled for
Wow.
Q1, right? And I don't feel overwhelmed. Also, really, do you remember telling me, because I think you were one of the first people to express this to me, you were like, I should have just booked calls earlier like you told me. Do you remember saying that to me?
Oh, yeah.
Now they don't have a choice. The first 4 weeks, everybody has a weekly call, 30 minutes, 1-to-1 in their time slot. So that if I tell you to do something and you haven't done it by the next call, oh, we're going to start it together so that then you can have it done and move on to the next thing. But you were the first person to say it. And there were a couple of other people that were like, I mean, Coley, you told me to book a call, but I just didn't want to be a bother. So now I make it to where you're not a bother. First 4 weeks, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You will show up to this 30-minute call. I mean, unless your kid is sick, unless you're sick. I mean, you do get some grace. But other than that, you show up to this call every week, because now I'm trying to get everybody through their first offer in the first 30 days so that everything is done, ready to be tested, and then refined. And you can start building your second offer in the second 30 days.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great container for it, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish you could have experienced it, but it wouldn't exist now if you weren't one of my first guinea pigs so that I could actually see where this could go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Glad I could be of assistance there. It was great for me, so I'm glad to hear
I appreciate it. All right, David, as we wrap this up, is there anything that you wish that you had known or that you wish that you had done before joining Systems in Session, or even while you were in it, to get better results than you got?
Yeah, and at risk of kind of repeating a little bit of what we just said, I think the more time you can spend thinking about the client journey that you want to put forth, the better prepared you're going to be, because that's time that you're not going to spend, in the Systems in Session structure, going back and forth with yourself, making these philosophical decisions. You'll do some of that, but it's inevitable that you're going to have to think about your offers, your target client for those offers, and be able to draw out by hand on a piece of paper where you want them to go, when you want to be able to check in with them, what you want sort of automated, where you really want to have a hand in the process, and where you maybe want to upsell them on something or ask them, for feedback. Obviously, you're going to do all that in Systems in Session, but I don't think you can think too much about that and for too long. The longer you are considering that, if you spend a year revising that in your head before you get to Systems in Session, the final product will be even better, inevitably. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. Think about your customer journey, because I'm going to push you guys when you join Systems in Session. I mean, that's the first thing that we do. And I really push you hard. Like just this week, one of my clients wrote 12 emails and we went back and forth 3 different times. And I was like, this timeline doesn't make sense. And in one of them, I made a comment. I'm like, you're not indicating that they have to add this on to their collection. And they responded, oh, I'm not currently charging for that. You know what my response was? No, that's an add-on. That's more money. Let's go fix your package immediately. So, I mean, I want you to listen to what David is saying, but I also want you to know that I do a fair amount of pushing. I mean, I consider it my love language. I want to make sure that we are getting you the clients that you want, and you're delivering an experience that you are proud of. But I also want to make sure that within the container, within your offers, within your client experience, that we are maximizing your opportunities for what I now call the 3 R's. David, have you heard me say them? Rave reviews, referrals, and repeat clients. So awesome. Everything that we do in Systems in Session is now based on that. David, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I really do appreciate it. And my only wish is that I should have had you on sooner.
This was great. Thanks, Coley. I had a great time, and I enjoyed the process of being a Systems in Session guinea pig as well. So I appreciate it all.
All right, everyone. And if you would like additional information on Systems in Session, check out the show notes or go to coleyjames.com/systems. There's probably a spot with your name on it waiting. All right, that's it for this episode. See you next time. Wait, before you go, if you love today's episode, I think you'll also love episode 241, Mastering Your Client Journey with Erin Bells. because in that episode, she talked all about how Systems in Session didn't just allow her to clean up her CRM and automations, but elevated her brand to where she felt confident using Dubsado to run a luxury client experience from start to finish. It's linked in the show notes if you're interested. Thanks for listening to the Business First Creatives podcast. For more information on this podcast, including show notes and links to the video podcast, please visit coleyjames.com/podcast. Are you loving the podcast? Sharing is caring. Until next time.